Hello children, let's see the third part of the learning history, nationalism in India. In the previous video, here we have discussed about the non-cooperation movement and its significance. Up to here we have discussed. So in this video, we will try to understand the latter part of the chapter. But before going to discuss the latter part of the chapter, let us try to recall what we have discussed. So history, there is so many methods or techniques by which we can keep this note or historical incidences, creating a timeline. So let us try to recall what we have discussed in the previous two video with the help of timeline. Now in this you can learn how the timeline can be prepared, or you can feel that how it is very easy to recall. So the chapter, if you see, begins from 1914. So let us see how to make a timeline and how it is helpful to recalling the chapter, or how it is easy to understand the various historical incidences or happenings with the help of this timeline. So I am going to tell you, you just get ready. If you just like, you note it down, and after that you see how in a very simple manner we can organize the chapter with the help of timeline. So to prepare timeline, here we are going to prepare the timeline based on the year, so which we need to set in the chronology. So first the chapter as begins with the 1914, so we will start with that. Let us see. 1914 is a year of First World War, right? Another 1915, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India from South Africa. These are the significance. 1960, Mahatma Gandhi visit to Champaran. 1917, Mahatma Gandhi visited Kheda. 1918, Mahatma Gandhi visited Ahmedabad. 1919, which is also called as the year of revolution in the context of Indian history, two important historical happenings are the passing of Rowlatt Act and the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. In the same year, the 1919, the idea of Khilafat movement was adopted by the Ali brothers, so-called Sukhat Ali and Muhammad Ali. 1920, Khilafat and non-cooperation movement ideas was adopted. 1921, Khilafat and non-cooperation movement was launched, and 1922, the call of non-cooperation movement. So this is how we can create a timeline which will be very helpful to understand the chapter in the chronology of the year. So up to here we have discussed, though non-cooperation movement was not successful to attain its objectives or its goal, but we cannot underestimate its importance or its significance. Why? Because non-cooperation movement has so much impact on the British rule, and it strengthened the Indians, or it organized the Indians against the British East India Company. So up to here we have discussed. Now let us try to understand the latter part of the content of this chapter in this video. So do you know, as I told you that in my first video, the history runs parallel. In one side, if non-cooperation movement was failure one, which was launched by Mahatma Gandhi and the Congress, but in the meanwhile many things were happening in another side as well. So there were so many institutions, so many thinkers, so many people, they have their own way of attaining the freedom from the colonial rule. Some group of people, they were called as a liberals, some were called radicals, some were called conservatives. So till now, the moderates were those group of people who follow the Gandhian principle, the idea of satyagraha. what moderates has done and for the attainment of the independence and what idea they have adopted, we have discussed. Now another such group of peoples were there who were also fighting for the independence of the country. They were called as extremists. So extremists, their idea was bit different. They don't believe in the Gandhian principle, and they were in view that if we want to achieve the independence, then we must follow the theory of tit for tat. So this was the idea of extremist, and some of the very well known extremist leader you may be knowing, that is Chandrasekhar Azad, Bhagat Singh, um, Subhash Chandra Bose. No, these are some of the prominent leaders of the extremist. So again, another group of people were there who were also fighting for the independence of the nation, and their ideology, and they were thinking of in different way. And in the previous video, or I just try to make you understand about the Swaraj. The Swaraj means the country which is ruled by its own people. It means Swaraj exactly means the self-governing body, a country which is governed by its own elected group of people. That is the Swaraj. But do the meaning of Swaraj is same or understand in a similar way by all the people living in the different part of the country? Then let us try to understand this. Now if we see or if we read this chapter, then we will gather some idea, some information that Swaraj means different things to the different group of people, and these differences goes like this. So as we know that the term Swaraj means self-rule or dominant status for the Congress people. What Congress think about the Swaraj? In this type of government granted by British in the other government self-governing colonies of the Australia and Canada. So this is what the meaning of Swaraj to the Congress, and the Swaraj means to the peasants of Awadh is something different than what the Congress they have their own understanding and meaning for the Swaraj. For the peasants of Awadh, Swaraj means the reduction in the taxes, the abolition of beggary or forced labor, and social boycott of oppressive landlords. You know that in those days Jamindari system was in exercise. So what people or the peasants of Awadh, their understanding for Swaraj means getting rid of all these things. Now if you see the concept Swaraj and its understanding to the plantation worker of Assam is something different. For them Swaraj means right to move freely in and out the plantation where they were enclosed and retaining link with the village from which they had come. So for the workers of the Assam, the meaning of or the understanding of the Swaraj is something different. If you see the indigenous people of Andhra Pradesh, for them Swaraj means to enter and collect the forest product, to gauge their cattle and give off the forced labor. As in the class 8 you might have discussed, the colonial ruler, they have executed so many laws they have made, such as forest law, criminal act law. So this kind of laws they have executed to restrict the people and the movement of the people. And for them the Swaraj and its understanding is something different, right? So Swaraj and its meaning and understanding is different to the different people living in different part of the country. So let us move to the another. So if it is so, with what and to make the to adopt the idea of Swaraj, or to make people realize what exactly is Swaraj, many people they did their best at their level. Among such, there were a group of people so-called radicals. So they also have their own understanding about the Swaraj, and with their understanding, they formed one political party which is come to be known as Swaraj Party. This party was set up by Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das in the 1923. The reason or the purpose they formed this party is they want to struggle and against the colonial rule, and through participating in the elections to the provincial council that had been set up by the Government of India Act of 1919. So radicals, they thought that it is always good or it is very important to oppose the colonial rule through the democratic manner. That's why they tried to increase their number, or they tried to get entered in the provincial council. This is what they understand. For them, the meaning of Swaraj is this. So they felt that it was important to oppose British policies within the council, argue for the reform, and also demonstrate this council and not truly democratic. Means with remaining within the council, they try to oppose that this council is not democratic in its nature of functioning. With this idea, the radicals, they formed a Swaraj Party, and they try to oppose the administration, being a part of administration itself. They also wanted to keep the anti-British spirit of people alive, since non-cooperation movement was suspended. So in 1922, as we know that when Gandhiji was called off the non-cooperation, then this group of people, this radical, they thought that this anti-British mind spirit of the people should not go down, and to keep it alive, they formed this party and they tried to oppose the council, being a part of it. So let us try to understand or try to know two major development in the Indian politics towards the late 1920, or what was the two factors that shaped Indian politics towards the 1920. As I told you in my first video, history run parallel. So if you see the later part of 1920, the two big incidences happened. That is what the first was the effect of worldwide economic depression. You may be knowing that since 1926 to 1930, within this period, the agricultural prices began to fall. As the demand of agricultural goods fell and the exports declined, as a reason, the peasants found it difficult to sell their harvest and pay the revenue, as different kind of duties were imposed. So when the worldwide economic depressions had seen or experienced, in that conditions, it has affected so many agriculturists or the peasants of our country as well. You know that 1929 is also remarked as a period of Great Depression, and that process, the falling out of this economy, has begun from 1926. So this is one of the big development that we have seen in the later part of the 1920, and another was the Simon Commission. To have a reform in the Government of India's Act of 1919, the British Legislative Assembly or Imperial House, it has formed a commission, and these commissions were suggest that to have a look to understand and what sorts of reform can be brought in the Government of India Act of 1919. With this motive, the commission was made and it was sent to India. But what was the demerits of this commission? this commission which was sent to India and which were supposed to bring certain reforms in the Government of India Act of 1919, and further according to which our country need to be administered, that commission did not include a single Indian as its member. Now this particular thing made people unhappy. So ultimately the Simon Commission was opposed. So let us try to understand little about the Simon Commission. It was a statutory commission set up by the British under the John Simon. It was asked to study the constitutional system in India and suggest the changes. Now Indian opposed the Simon Commissions. The reason? All the member of commissions were Englishmen. There was no Indian in it. It did not provide any hope of Suraj to Indians. This was the reason when Simon Commission came to India, it was opposed by the Indians. Now, after the Simon Commission get opposed, immediately what happened? The Congress called for conference in the year 1929, which is come to be known as Lahore Congress of 1929. So Lahore Congress has a significant role, or a very important or crucial decisions were taken. This commission was held at Lahore in 1929 under the leadership of Pandit Nehru, and certain decisions were taken. These decisions were: the Congress declared Purna Swaraj in its aim. It means in Lahore Congress, the first decision was taken that the Congress is going to declare a complete independence. So another important decision is taken in the Lahore Congress of 1929 was it decided to celebrate 26 January every year as a Independence Day. It was decided to start the civil disobedience movement to win the Purna Swaraj. So in this way, some of the major decisions were taken in the Lahore Congress session after opposing the Simon Commission in 1928. Now see some of the significance of the Congress session in 1929 in the freedom struggles of India. Just we have discussed what were the important point has been taken in the Lahore Congress conference. So that need to be understand, and this become a significant point of this particular session. So Lahore session of Indian National Congress of 1929 was held up under the presidency of Pandit Nehru. The two important decisions taken were the attainment of the complete independence. It was declared in the session that the chief goal of Indian National Congress was the attainment of complete independence. It was decided to launch a civil disobedience movement under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi to get the complete independence. It was decided in the session to celebrate 26 January as a Independence Day. So such decisions were taken after the failure of Simon Commissions. And next, so with all these set aims and objectives in the Lahore Congress session of 1929, Mahatma Gandhi thought of launching the Dandi March, which is also called as the Salt March or Salt Satyagraha. Now Gandhiji decided to inaugurate the civil disobedience movement by breaking the salt law. One important point we need to understand: why salt law? Gandhiji want to include large number of people despite of their differences based on caste, religion or reason. So he thought of choosing such an item which is commonly used by every people. So he found salt as one of the best food items which is being used by all the people. So taking these food items, one of the important assets to start the Dandi March on in 6th of April 1929, Gandhiji along with his 78 followers started the Dandi March, also called as a Salt March, from Sabarmati Ashram to a place called Dandi in Gujarat. Okay, and reaching in the Dandi by using sea water, he prepared a salt and broke the law that is imposed on the salt. During those days, the government imposed heavy taxes on the salt. Moreover, the production of salt was the monopoly of the government. So the price of salt was very high. Therefore, Gandhiji opposed this. This is one of the aspects. Some historian says this aspect also. Now let us see the main features of the civil disobedience movement. Now Gandhiji led a march on foot from Sabarmati to Dandi. We have discussed just now. He broke the salt law at Dandi and inaugurated the movement. People broke the salt law in many places. Foreign goods were boycotted. Liquor stores were picketed. Government servants resigned their jobs. Forest law were broken. The people refused to pay taxes. And seeing all this opposition from diverse sides of the society, the British government, they started to detain the prominent leader of different parties, including the Congress. Now the detention of the leaders has created another issue for the government. Now workers attacked government offices, right? Now finally, when there was a uprisings for the freedom or against the colonial rule, and when the British government has found that situation was going out from their control, then they had called Gandhiji for a negotiations to discuss the future plan of India or the administrative system of India. That's why on 5th March 1931, the Gandhiji was called for a second round table conference, which is under the Gandhi-Irvine Pact. Now he agreed to attend the second round table conference. In this conference, Mahatma Gandhi stated several points that as a leader of Congress or as an Indian, they want to have reforms. But none of his forwarded points were accepted by the British Council in the second round table conference. And finally, again he returned back to India from London, and he continued, or he relaunched the civil disobedience movement. And finally, the civil disobedience movement, after relaunching in 1931, it was called off in 1934. Now see, difference between non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. These two major movement which was organized by the Congress under the leadership of Gandhiji, if you see, it has different points, or certain points are there which are very different, and these differences make the non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement a bit different from each other. Let us try to understand that. People refused to cooperate with the government during the non-cooperation movement. This is one. People broke the civil laws during the civil disobedience movement. What is the first difference? In non-cooperation movement, the people, they were not ready to cooperate with the British government. Whereas in civil disobedience movement, the then existing law of the British government was violated or was blocked by the people, right? Muslims participate in large number in the non-cooperation movement. Muslim participations was less in the civil disobedience movement. So this is another important point need to be understand to know what is the difference between non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. Thirdly, no tax campaign was tax not there in non-cooperation movement. People refused to pay tax in the civil disobedience movement. It means in non-cooperation movement, the people they have demanded the impose of the tax either should be removed or it should be brought down. But in civil disobedience movement, the people refuse to pay the tax. So this is how it has two different nature. Both non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement, it has two different nature, but both were the common perspective of the movement was what? To oppose the colonial rule. Now let us see in the civil disobedience movement, social group which participated, how they did or what was their reactions. We need to understand that. Now rich people, depressions and fall in prices affected them badly. They demanded reduction in land revenue. Suraj meant reduction of taxes for them. This is what the people and their reactions who were participating in the civil disobedience movement. What we need to understand, what we are discussing this, just to know that the civil disobedience movement which was started by the Gandhiji, though different social group and the people they participated, but they did not participate in this movement with the common perspectives or common idea, right? Poor peasants, depressions affect them badly. They demanded reduction in rent. Swaraj means reduction of rent for them. This is the reactions of poor peasants. Business class, they demanded protection against the import of foreign goods. They wanted a rupee sterling exchange rate that would discourage import. They formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress in 1920. They also formed the Federation of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. They gave financial help to the movement and refused to sell the foreign goods. So this is the reaction of business class. And industrial workers, they were poorly paid. Conditions of work were miserable. Swaraj means better wages and working condition for them. Railway workers and dockyard workers conducted strike. Worker in mines wore a Gandhi cap and took part in the rallies. It means in the civil disobedience movement, though the different social group, right from the rich peasants, poor peasants, business group and industrial workers, they have participated. They come forward to support the civil disobedience movement, but somewhere they have their own hidden objectives. They did not come with the one common objectives and which could make the movement more stronger. As because of this people's different reactions or because of their own objectives they have set with what they have come forward to participate in the civil disobedience movement, made civil disobedience movement was a failure and it's failed to achieve its set goals. But why it's like that? Why did the different social group join the civil disobedience movement? In the countryside, the rich peasants communities like the Jats of UPs and the Patidars of Gujarat were active in the movement. Indian merchants and the industrial wanted protection against import of foreign goods and the rupee sterling foreign exchange ratio that would discourage import. They wanted to end the colonial control over the Indian economy. They joined civil disobedience movement and gave financial assistance and refused the buy or sell of imported goods. So these are with the different sentiments, with the different objectives, people come forward and they join the movement. Another important features of the civil disobedience movement was the large scale participations of women. This is the first time women to come forward. No doubt in non-cooperation movement also the participations of women were there, but in civil disobedience movement, in compare with the non-cooperation movement, women's participants is seen large in number. So during Gandhiji's salt march, thousands of women come out of their homes to listen to him. They participated in the protest marches, manufactured salt and picked up foreign clothes and liquor shops. Many went to jail. There were strike by the railway workers in 1930 and the dockyards in 1932. In 1930, thousands of workers in the Chota Ragpur tin mines wore Gandhi caps and participated in protest rallies and boycott the campaign. This is how the things were going on. So some of the important questions are there, or some of the important points which you need to know. That is, why did the rich people, rich peasants community join the civil disobedience movement? Why did not they join when it was relaunched in 1932? Initially, in the first phase of civil disobedience movement, you have seen the rich peasants like Patidars and the Jats, they have joined the movement. But in the later part, when it is relaunched, they oppose, means they did not join the movement. The reason is, being a producer of commercial crop, they were very hard hit by the trade depressions and falling prices. As their cash income disappeared, they found it impossible to pay the government revenue demand. So this was the reasons why in the second phase of the launching of a civil disobedience movement, the rich peasants, no, they did not took part. Now the refusal of the government to reduce the revenue demand lead to the widespread resentment. These rich peasants were active in organizing their communities and at time forcing reluctant members so participate in the boycott programs. For them, the fighting for Suraj was struggle against high revenue, but they were deeply disappointed when the movement was called off in 1931 without the revenue rates being revised. Therefore, when the movement was restarted in 1932, many of them refused to participate. As I told you, or we have discussed in the previous slides, that Swaraj means the different meaning and understanding for the different community people or different social group who are coming from diverse background. So with the change, so many things it get changed, means with the change of the time, when people find what they have think, what they have understand for it, when it did not come to happen, they got disappointment. Like if you see, taking the example of these rich patients, for them the struggle, or for them the Swaraj means what? Swaraj means struggle against the high revenue. But when the movement was called off without having any discussions or without discussing about any relaxation in its rate of revenue, they got disappointed. That's why with what interest, with what enthusiasm they have participated in the first phase of civil war or civil disobedience movement. It's not correct to call as a civil war. civil disobedience movement, and they did not support it. So this is what why did the poor peasants join the civil disobedience movement? Why was the relationship between the poor peasants and the Congress remained uncertain during civil disobedience? So if you see this phase, then some of the important answers or notes are there. The poorer peasants were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue demand. Many of them were small tenants cultivating land they had rented from the landlords. So another point, as the depression continued and the cash income decreased, the small tenants found it difficult to pay their rent. They wanted the unpaid rent to the landlords to be remitted. So this is some of the important note that what we have discussed in the previous slide. Based on that, some expected questions or some expected questions comes in our mind and may come in exam. How we can attempt this, just we are discussing that one. So third point, they joined a variety of radical movement often lead to socialist and communist. The Congress did not want to set up the rich peasants and landlords, and was unwilling to support no rent campaign of the poor peasants imposed in most places. So the relationship between the poor peasants and the Congress remained uncertain. So this is how the things are getting changed. So up to here we will discuss in this video, and later portion of the chapter we will discuss in the next video. Thank you.